guys, this is Lala Legacy and welcome to Symphonic Rain. So I've been wanting to play this game for quite a while now and I just got around to doing it. So, I don't really know much about this game. All I know is that it is very much music driven. Obviously from the song or from the title of the game. At least that's what I'm assuming. So I had been wanting to play it for a very long time just because of that. Because you guys know how I am. I am huge into music. So, without further ado, let's start. Dear Chris, is it still raining over there? Oh, okay. Ari always began her letters that way. The weather over here is sunny, as always. It's so nice that I wish I could give you even a little bit of it. It hurts, to be reminded of how far away you are by details of or as trivial as the weather. Recently, I realized that these days without you have lasted for 3 years already. Once this month ends, we will be entering a new year. Then, only 2 months will be left before we are finally reunited, right? Ever since I realized that, it feels as though the passage of time has slowly slowed down, or has slowed down a bit. Times like these are also quite harsh, even if they cannot compare to the time when we had to part ways. At the same time, I'm a little anxious about the day of our reunion. Does that sound weird? It would be nice if we could spend the end of the year together like before. Yet I wonder if that will be possible, especially now that you have your recital coming up. Besides, I'm not sure if I would be able to make it. I will write you the details in one of my letters before Natalie or Natalie. I will be looking forward to yours in return. Oh, that's right. In her letter, Torta told me that you haven't yet chosen your partner for the performance, the one that you need to graduate. She seemed really concerned about it. I may not be in the position to say this, but wouldn't it be better to decide as soon as possible? I can hardly wait for another year. But it looks like I'm rambling. I will continue in the next letter. Arietta. Okay. 27th of November. It seems like all of these words and names and whatnot are in Italian. So that's interesting. I looked away from the letter I had just finished reading and played idly with the paper in my hands. It always took a while for the lingering feelings to dissipate. After sitting still for a moment, I finally brought myself to fold up the letter. I gently slipped it back into the elegant envelope, taking care to replace it in the same condition that it arrived in. Then I placed it in the drawer where I stored all of her... Wait. Or all of her letters. The letters from Ari were so... succinct, I guess. Or I don't know that word. Sorry. That each of them took up only one sheet of paper. Even so, the drawer was almost filled to the brim with them. They were almost like they were almost a physical reminder of the time that had passed by. As the white letters accumulated in the drawer, she once said, "One day, when that drawer is filled to the brim with your letters, or you will come back, won't you?" So in order to keep my promise with her, I continued to send her letters on a weekly basis. I closed the drawer quietly and leaned back against the chair. I glanced at the scenery beyond the window, then at the clock to confirm the time. 6 o'clock, huh? Night was approaching rapidly. Even so, the scenery outside wouldn't change that much. The dull, overcast sky would only darken a bit more. The patter of the rain on the window continued incessantly. What do you mean 6 o'clock, huh? Oh, goodness, she has little wings. Oh, she's a little fairy. How cute. Hurry up and write your reply so we can start performing our ensemble. Forney hopped down from the windowsill to the desk, her supple wings slicing through the air gracefully. Then she stopped about 10 centimeters above the desk and hovered there. The wings extending from Forney's back fluttered rapidly, but it didn't look like they were what was keeping her afloat. Everything about her was a wonder. Yeah, I know. I have always read and replied to Ari's letters like this. I was never really pressed for time to write my reply, but since she had said, "I'd like to read your reply as early as possible," I was just dutifully fulfilling her request. That was all there was to it. Her letters, however, took some time to arrive. If I wrote my letter now and deposited it in the post tomorrow morning, it should arrive there after 2 days. By that logic, a full exchange would span 4 days, so there was little reason to rush. However, Ari worked at a flourishing bakery in the town where we were born and raised. It was so famous that people came from afar just to sample its products. I'd heard that because she was still a trainee, she sometimes even had to forego sleep to work. Ari could read my letter as soon as it arrived on Wednesday, but since Friday afternoon was her only time off, she'd have to wait until then to compose a reply. So her letter would arrive on Saturday at noon. Sunday at noon, sorry. The post office was not open on Sundays, so I had a bit of leeway to write my reply. As she mentioned in her letter, this mail exchange cycle had persisted for almost 3 years. So you say, but you're taking forever. Okay. After finishing the reply swiftly, I enclosed the letter in an envelope and sealed it. Afterward, I finally turned toward Forney. You're finally done? Yeah. Oh, well, it is a letter to your sweetheart, after all. She gave a half-resigned sigh. Then, as if her mood had lightened up, she flapped her wings vigorously. I took out the foretell from the case that I carried it to school in and set it up in the corner. Then, if you will. Extending a hand to me, Forney made her usual request. I did as she asked and let her glide onto my palm. Then I transferred her to the top of the foretell. Forney's wings didn't appear to be very useful. They didn't allow her to increase her altitude. As she demonstrated earlier, it seemed as if she couldn't move horizontally without descending. However, when she descended, she could glide for quite a distance. Well now, I dragged a chair before the foretell and started tuning. Just before everybody living in this apartment building attended this, or just about everybody living in the apartment building attended the same school as me. Because we understood each other's need to practice, one could play freely in the middle of the night without worrying about disturbing one's neighbors. Shall we begin? She repeated the same sound while her wings flickered rapidly. Then Forney glanced toward me. A light pressed by my hand, resting on the foretell. I'm pretty sure that's how it's pronounced, Sal. At the same time, I concentrated my mind on the sound of the first note. Magic. A power that was necessary to play this instrument. a power that, in ancient times, everyone was said to have to some degree. That power vanished in an instant, and was replaced by an equally miraculous power which soon spread throughout the world: electricity. The foretell was faint evidence that magic existed in the ages past. The same piece as usual? Yeah. Oh, she's cute! I pictured the notes in my mind. And then, as I played, I pictured myself becoming one with the notes in each chord, existing within the music. Okay, well, that was the intro piece, but I had already recorded that because it plays at the very beginning when you first start up the game too. And that will be going up on the Facebook page. So if you wanted to see that, you can. When the last note faded away, a veil of silence fell across the room. For a moment, the two of us just remained still, so still that we seemed to be holding our breaths. But the moment was quickly shattered by the patter of rain. Ah, that felt great! With her eyes still closed, Forney leaned back against the music stand and sighed absently. She too had become part of her song. When we first met, Forney introduced herself as a sprite of music. I've come to know better than anyone that that was no lie. But frankly, I don't remember that time very well. I was very busy when I first moved into this apartment. She showed up, explained that she was a sprite of music who lived in this room, and that was pretty much it. Initially, I suspected that it was all just an illusion, but without a doubt, she was in fact real. However, after I had been persuaded into performing an ensemble with her when she noticed my foretell, all that ceased to matter. I'd been captivated by the beauty of her voice. Even now, that hadn't changed. It was a pity that no one could see or hear her. Despite how cliché it may sound, I would describe her voice of that as an angel. I couldn't think of a more fitting description for it. Now then, as if shaking off the final reverberations, Forney opened her eyes. Like her, I returned to reality from my reverie and lifted my hands from the keyboard. How about getting some sleep? It's that late already? Time flew whenever we continually practiced like this. It was probably because I concentrated so much on playing that I felt exhausted every time I snapped back into reality. And that was why I didn't rehearse with Forney every day. It was our agreement to do so only on Sundays. Once I'd replied to Ari's letter, Forney would exclaim, as she did earlier, "Let's perform our ensemble!" You should put the letter in your bag so you won't forget it. Yes, I know. Even though she had a tiny frame and a childlike voice, yay! Hey, I did it! Forney was always reminding me about the things I needed to do. I couldn't say it suited her appearance, but she looked kind of cute doing it, so I didn't mind her telling me what to do. This might also be because she reminded me of Ari's younger sister, my other childhood friend, Torta. Very well. Good night, then! Yeah, good night. I had long become accustomed to Forney's way of vanishing like that. Her existence certainly was a wonder. But, deep down inside, I had probably always harbored a desire to accept her presence. Thanks to her, in all the time that I'd been here, I'd never been affected by loneliness or the alienation of living in a land I felt I didn't belong to. Good night. Okay, November 28th. The soft sound of streaming water. The sound of rain flowing through the zinc gutter. A few rays of light that managed to pass through the thin clouds made for poor illumination. I started to get up and turn on the light, but when I noticed the presence beside my pillow, I stopped in surprise. Good morning! Good morning. Oh, well, it's nothing new. Your sleeping face looks like a child's. Are there sleeping faces that don't? Who knows? I've only seen yours. Anyway, do the usual, please. Having apparently lost interest already, she gave me a satisfied look and flapped her wings a few times. I picked her up and brought her over to her favorite spot in front of the window. She sat down and started to swing her legs around playfully. What time is it now? A little past 9. Pity you hadn't slept in a bit more, for this would have been a good occasion to play a prank on you. I reached for the alarm clock on my desk and canceled the alarm. Perhaps I'd grown accustomed to Forney's rash way of waking me. Since nowadays, I seem to be waking up naturally, even before my alarm went off. Then again, since my sleeping hours were pretty regular, setting my alarm was just a precaution. Okay, I suppose I'll get changed. Oh, by the way, don't forget about the letter! I put it in my bag yesterday. Forney nodded approvingly and gazed at the rain outside, signaling the end of that conversation. What? It's raining again today? As usual. Great weather, huh? As usual. I quickly got changed and headed for the front door. I didn't usually eat breakfast and Forney didn't eat at all. So all I had to do before I left was wash my face and change my clothes. As I opened the door, the first thing to reach my ears was the sound of rain spattering on the pavement. Though it wasn't a loud sound by any means, it was a constant irritation to my ears, like earwax that couldn't be cleaned out. The City of Rain. It was hard not to be reminded of that name when you arrived here for the first time. There'd been a time when the town was actually called the City of Rain, and even the town's current name, Piova, I think, originated from it. However, nowadays, this town was known as the City of Music. The residents of this town all acknowledge this and seem to take pride in it. I stepped underneath the eaves of a store along the street. These eaves were created long ago to provide people shelter from the rain. I shook my head lightly and brushed the droplets off my clothes. I could do that casually, which was a sign of just how accustomed I have become to living in this town. Perhaps the residents, too, had become a little too used to the rain falling year-round, since no one usually carried an umbrella. It would be a week before I could hold Ari's next letter. In my mind, I unconsciously pictured the way that I would spend the week, waiting for her letter. This time that I had grown all too accustomed to. This town that I had grown all too accustomed to. This was just like any other week, but I just couldn't shake off this lingering uneasy feeling. Like this town wasn't really my place to be. A strange feeling. I sometimes got the silly thought that if I didn't have Forney, Torta, and the letters from Ari, time itself would just stop moving. Excuse me. Suddenly, a stranger's voice brought me back from my reverie. I turned around. I'd like to send a letter. Oh, right, excuse me. Thank you. After giving me a light bow, the man inserted his letter into the mailbox and left. How long had I been lost in thought? Torta and Forney often told me this, but it appeared I really did have a bad habit of suddenly slipping into deep thought. It would be bad if I caught a cold because I let myself get drenched. I decided to stop thinking about it and began walking leisurely in the direction of the school. I finally arrived at the campus. It was a little past 10. Since I still had 20 minutes before my private lesson would begin, I took my time strolling toward the main building. Students whose classes start at this time are rare, but they do exist. You wouldn't see any freshmen or juniors since their classes begin early in the morning, but most of the senior year course load is private lessons, which generally begin Um, ah, which generally begin later in the day. There was the option to have the private lessons in the morning, but since most students preferred doing it in the afternoon, it wasn't very crowded at this time of the day. If I chose to have my lesson during second period, which starts at 10:30, getting up in the morning wouldn't be all that painful. Combined with the fact that I didn't really like crowds, I chose to have my lesson during the second period. But that is all the time that I have for this episode, guys. So if you liked it, please give it a big thumbs up down below. And if you haven't already, subscribe. By subscribing, you're becoming part of a legacy. Let me know down below how you're liking this so far. I am actually very interested in this because it's all about music and stuff. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. All right, and I'll see you guys in the next one.